Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and today we are welcoming Daryl Omar. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. That was an
Okay.
amazing introduction.
Thank you, Daryl. So Daryl is also unique about his journalism and podcast, and we were talking before the show, and we'll carry out this conversation. So tell me a little bit, my audience, yourself about.
I guess I'll continue what I was saying, like what kind of brought me to this point. I'm from Maplewood, New Jersey, and I went to school at Kent State University as an out-of-state student, second generation going to college. I faced a lot of difficulties, like going to class, getting good grades wasn't really hard, but a lot of the social aspects and nuances of living in a different state led me to kind of have depression, things like that. So I left university. I was a political science, psychology, and English major. My dream is always to write. My dream has been to write since I was in third grade. I started writing books in my sophomore year of high school. So I started getting advice to leave. You can take a leave of absence, you can take a gap year. That gap year turned into about 5 years or so since I've been back. But in that time, I've become a number one bestseller for fiction, Christian fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy. I had a lot of success in writing. So I write for entertainment, but I also have a vlog called the Multicultural Writers Collective. That's my group as well. I'm the founder of the Multicultural Writers Collective to just lead authors away from a lot of the issues that I faced when I first got started, spending way more money than they need to, making a lot of mistakes, dealing with people that want to bring them down instead of elevating them. And I think probably the best skill that kind of led us to this conversation is writing faster and not believing. People believe in writer's block, and I don't believe in writer's block. I don't believe if you're doing the proper things necessary before you sit down, you got to read more. You got to consume more information. You might have to watch YouTube videos or watch movies or television. But I find like the only time people really get writer's block is when what they're writing is kind of boring. So I wrote about 50,000 words in less than 2 weeks. For now is National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, for people that don't know what NaNoWriMo is. So I completed NaNoWriMo in about 2 weeks. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram now, and people aren't even half of the way or fourth of the way through. So I just wanted to offer what I could possibly offer to new authors out there, experienced authors, anyone who's interested in that arena.
Okay, very nice, very nice. I think a lot of people like to write, but I think they don't find, or they could be afraid, that
Absolutely.
they might do something wrong. Or I think, yeah, I wrote one book myself, and I think it just came, and I thought best is just kind of express yourself and don't worry about what others say or might not be perfect, but that's fine. Everybody should express, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit, how did you start writing? I know you must have started earlier, or did you start late?
That's very interesting. I've never told anybody else this story before. I actually had difficulties reading early on. I knew how to read, but I wasn't really excited in the second grade and first grade to read in front of people. I'm from an all-white neighborhood. Now there are a lot more Black people living there, but when I was a kid growing up, I was one of a few Black people. I was like one of two. So I always had like nervousness when it came to reading. So in about this first and second grade, that's when things kind of buckled down. And I was kind of given more of a crash course in history about what my people had gone through as African descendants of slavery and the punishments that we received for reading, for writing, for trying to educate ourselves and gain literacy. So when I came back to school in the third grade, I didn't really want to go through that. I didn't want to be another representative of that. So I
Mm,
started writing in the third grade, but non-seriously. By the time I got to the fourth grade, I started to get recognized for my poetry skills. When I got to the fifth grade, writing became a personal outlet. I didn't really share it with people anymore. But by the time I was getting to high school, I had moved from writing. During middle school, I wrote songs, I wrote poetry. In high school is when I wanted to become a novelist. And I
mhm,
didn't consider it really writing unless I could write 50,000, 100,000 words. So I got started. Ironically, I had a teacher. I almost said professor. I had a teacher in my sophomore year of high school who's retiring. So he didn't
mhm,
really care what was going on as long as it was related to English. So in
mhm,
my English class, I would spend the entire class writing my book. I would listen to what he was doing. I kind of like schism my brain. So I'm listening, I'm taking notes, but I had another notebook and I have a clipboard with me everywhere, and I would just write books. When I got to college, however, my ambitions and dreams have changed a lot because I wanted money like everybody else. I
mhm,
wanted to be rich. I wanted to be powerful.
mhm,
So the pathway at that point was, let me get a triple major. Let me study as much as possible to become a politician or a lawyer. And then once I learned more about American politics, I learned more about things that were kind of happening in America. I realized like there's no possible way to make a social change from within the system. I'm either going to become a cog of the system or I'm going to become an advocate of the system, which is why I didn't pursue law and I didn't pursue politics anymore. And I kind of fell into a really big depression at that point in time. A lot of the things that I learned when I was young turned out not to be true. A
mhm,
lot of the things that I was taught about being black were limiting me. It's like, I don't know. I'm not sure if you go through that too, not being like a white American, but
mhm,
sometimes it feels like rather than the reality of being black, because the reality of being black in America is that you're just a human being living. Like there's nothing really going on.
mhm,
But the delusion, the psychological pressure,
mhm,
the ideals that people have, the viewpoints that people have about black people, that is really what weighs you down. That's really what tears you up from the inside out. And after going through that for so long, I had to leave university, and writing had become my only real outlet for that.
mhm,
And that's kind of like from point A, from being, I guess, 7 or 6 years old to being, I'm now 27. So about my 20-year process and journey
mhm,
of becoming a full-on author, becoming a bestseller.
mhm,
So I didn't start too recently, but I didn't take it seriously until about 2019
mhm,
is when I really understood what was going on. 2015 is when I left college and I
mhm.
started writing, but I didn't do research on. I thought I was going to be a millionaire my first year writing. You know,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
people are waiting for. It's like you don't realize how many people are writing. You don't realize how many people are self-publishing. And really, it wasn't until 2020 that I had began to learn proper marketing techniques. I started really seeing success in what I was doing because I did not realize how much I didn't. I had a lot of knowledge and information about other things that make great books, but becoming the best-selling author is not the same as being the most talented author is what I learned. And that's kind of when I had to get out of my shell a bit more because I remember when you first asked me to do it, I was very nervous. I watched your show. I loved your show. I was watching you at Joey Chandler. I was watching, I believe, Professor Ko, and I see you on Jets. You play guitar. I'm like, this guy is so much cooler than I am. Like, what can I possibly offer this conversation? But you can't. I have a completely different field of knowledge. I may not be the most interesting guy in the world, but I have a completely different field of knowledge that is still purposeful and useful for those who are interested in writing. I
Mhm.
can't tell you about guitar. I can't tell you about being a doctor. I can't tell you about other things, but this had just become. No, go
No,
ahead.
no, I love your actually. I saw that, and I love your enthusiasm, and I love what you're telling. I think there is. I can correlate because myself, I am not white, and I had to struggle all my years, and at every point, you have to really prove that you are the best. So in what
Yeah,
you do, and
absolutely.
or I think that is kind of for all of us. But I think yes, being white, they might get advantage in
I
certain ways,
feel
for sure, for sure. And then other thing is, and then I think what you're describing is very important. You said that being black is one thing, but others pull you down, or others
Absolutely.
just create such a hindrance. Even if, let's say, even we are in a neighborhood, or people, they are not racist and they are normal people, still you have your own drag or something, dragging your own community, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Your own community will pull you down and make you believe that no, you are actually thinking wrong, right?
Mhm.
So, which might not, right? So I think that is actually a very powerful thing, because that is true. Same stands for our community. So even if you want to, a lot of people are doing good and everything, and there are very nice people on all different backgrounds,
Absolutely.
and then some really want to help you, and some really are praying for your success. But there are, unfortunately, most or will be, I think they are afraid. Same for blacks, same for non-white. They are afraid that, is this for real? Is this just or not? So
Absolutely.
everybody, we are lost with with that sense of hope, that is this gonna be a real hope, or is this just a mirage, and that there is no water and we're gonna just all die from being thirsty.
That's so true.
That's exactly what I think is happening. But I think it is, I really want to encourage you and myself too, and that's that we should, people like us should come forward and try. And I think there will be, we might not reach all the goals, and that's fine, but this will pave the way for so many people to actually try and be successful. And
1,000%.
that's what it's all about,
I
right?
absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. One point I would say, people talk about white privilege. The only real privilege that there seems to be is that there's a lower bar to entry. There's a lower standard. For them, they can be white, and that doesn't really seem like a privilege to me. That just kind of seems like those are the interactions that you should have with people that look like you. Those are
Mm,
the interactions that you should have with people that, when you deal with a human being, period, I feel like you should approach the situation with the benefit of the doubt that this might be a good human being. It's like we're almost kind of convinced across racial boundaries or across racial lines
mhm,
to feed this sort of ignorance that we have about the other side.
mhm,
And the trap that a lot of black people kind of get themselves into is that we convince ourselves as black people that we're in a unique situation
mm,
that no other group of people on the planet can relate to. You have
mm,
people that are coming from countries that have just got bombed. They have nothing to go home to. And
mm.
this might be the only outlet that they may have. You
Yeah.
have people that come to this country because there was a genocide and there was, or ethnic cleansing, whichever, like I'm thinking about Armenia when I say that. Like,
Mm,
black people do not have a monopoly upon pain and suffering and victimhood.
mm,
We weren't the only people affected by imperialism.
mhm,
And I don't know, is you kind of have to free yourself for that. We compare everything to black people. To what I would respond to one thing that you said within our community, it becomes very difficult because when you have positive traits as a black person, instead of you getting credit for that, or
mm,
your parents getting credit for raising you properly, or
mm.
perhaps you worked very hard to talk the way that I talk, someone
Yeah.
will say that you just talk white. They will attribute your intellect or your wealth, or it's like an attempt to be, and it shows such a lack of knowledge upon white society. And this
Mhm.
isn't a racial thing, this isn't a political thing. It's just you eventually have to free yourselves from things because you might be wrong in your perception, or I might be wrong in my perception. More, I want to speak about myself because I don't know what other people are doing,
Yeah. Mm,
but I got exposed to when I went to Kent State because I grew up in a pretty wealthy neighborhood in Maplewood. Again, it's I say it's predominantly white, but I would say that's the wrong way to state it. It was predominantly upper middle class, upper class people
mm,
who never had to worry about poverty. Never, and that just came with a different life within itself. There were a lot of different people from different backgrounds, political beliefs, religious beliefs there as well. But when I moved to Ohio,
mm,
and I moved to a state where the entire state, if you know more about Ohio, when
mm,
the Great Depression happened, when the steel market collapsed, most of Ohio's economy collapsed. There are a lot of poor areas in Ohio now that aren't black areas. There are a lot of poor areas in Pennsylvania that I got to see that are not black areas. We have this perception and this ideal, and I don't want to stay on this topic for too long, but it's a good introductory point, I believe, that there are a lot of poor white people in this country who are suffering and dealing with very big issues that if we focused upon poverty
Mm.
instead of focusing upon skin color, we can
Yeah.
improve lives across the board for people. But instead, we feel as black people that white people are doing so much better than us. We feel like immigrants are coming to the country and getting advantages and but poor white people feel the same way too. It's like we're being tricked in a type of way. I don't, for a lack of a better word, I would say tricked
Mm.
into thinking that life is more than just your habits and your choices.
Mhm.
That life comes down to people judging you simply based upon, and people do. I've had to deal with that. But when
Mm.
people judge you specifically based on your skin color, there are so many things that you might be the first black person or the first Pakistani, Afghanistan or Indian person or Japanese person that someone has ever met before in their lifetime.
Mm.
That is a very big deal. And just because they have these negative or ignorant beliefs about black people or anybody else that's not white, it doesn't mean that you can't be their first positive influence to change. When you believe that people have the ability to change their mind, you become more of, I believe, an agent of change and a catalyst for a better lifetime and a better tomorrow, rather than just feeding the stereotypes because that's what people expect from you.
Mm.
And that has made life very lonely because it's put me in a position where a lot of black people cannot resonate with my message or resonate with my work because it's not, as I talked to someone today, it's not from the streets. It's not from poverty, it's not from gang violence, it's not from these things that have stereotypically been codified into blackness that is honestly just self-destruction. It's self-sabotage. It's a lot of the things that are holding us back rather than pushing us forward that we want to identify with. And I've kind of had that seat more so is that I've been forced to be in situations in which I'm the only black person around amongst. I
Mm.
worked in a factory once. I worked with a bunch of illegal immigrants because I was in a weird economic position. I was the only black person there
Mm.
amongst all Latino people. Some of them were legal, a lot of them were not. A lot of them did not speak English whatsoever. We had to find a way to make things work out. So
Mm.
it's me, a bunch of Latinos, and then a few white people as our foreman. Weird place of existence. I've been in situations in which I'm literally the only black person there, the only representative for black people amongst
Mm.
an entire room of white people, or only kid there, only a young black. So I don't know. I've had a very unique life experience that's helped me see a different side of society that isn't what the media discusses. It isn't what other people discuss. And it isn't even how most people are even adequately raised. It's just, I feel like I've gotten to kind of see life for the way that it is rather than the way that we tell ourselves that life is.
And
And the way that we tell ourselves life is can be self sabotage, can be a trap. If you
mm.
don't think you're ever going to beat addiction, I guess I want to like root things back to like writing real quick. So that's the only thing I really know. Everything else I'm saying is just kind of conjecture. It's just kind of anecdotal. It's just my personal experience. But to talk about writing for a second, if you don't think that you're ever going to sell a copy or anyone's ever going to read your book, that is the weight that prevents you from writing the next book. It
That.
isn't the truth that people don't find your writing interesting. It isn't the truth that you come from a people or people don't want to hear about your personal life existence or story. It's just you mentally beating yourself up, or the individual mentally beating themselves up. I'm sorry for saying you. But in reality, there are no limitations. There's nothing really holding you back other than you.
Mm. Yeah, and that is so true. This is, the biggest fear is among us. It's not from
Brown,
anyone else.
brown people.
Yeah, so I think that's what exactly what you're describing. And yeah, I think you were describing also important thing is when we are looking for describing for a change from the status quo, whether it is black, white, or brown, or whatever color. And then we have, so there is you are thinking beyond the box. Okay, so if you're thinking beyond the box, and then there are people on both sides will take you a kind of alien. So they will say, this person or that person is you're up for a change, and then nobody likes that. Okay,
So
so
it's very
neither
hard.
the one. So I think that's why you're on in your own league, and I think you have very few people following you. So you have to be ready for that, and that's exactly I also face every day too. That whatever beliefs are in is none of my community fellows or anybody is enthusiastic about it. So
I
because
agree.
they think you are just nowhere, neither black, white, brown, nothing.
Like,
So same thing for you too. So if you are trying to do that, but my only advice and prayer is that make sure have enough strength to carry on. Don't give up, and then I think that's what exactly will happen. But important thing at the end of the day is the principles, principles, principles. In the end, truth always wins. Yes, and the true color always remains. It's not the fake colors disappear always. And then in the end, if you are true to yourself and if you have passion, there's nothing that will hold us. So I think that's what kind of makes me going. So I'm sure that will get you going too, right?
it's 1,000%, and it's like at one point in time, I had really almost convinced myself to stop, but it's like this was 2019. So I was
Mm,
working at Target in 2019, and it's like I knew that I had wrote some amazing, great books,
mm,
but I got such like when people can only see you physically, and this is like just speaks to the beauty of social media. Excuse me. It speaks to the overall beauty of the modern world. I feel like I keep spitting. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel like today is honestly the best time to be alive because you've never had so many people so open minded about these things. You never had a way to really connect with people. Like people had grown up, honestly, they'd never seen a non white person before. There's still people today that I meet.
mm,
Just in 2015, 2014, I was the first black person that they were friends with. I was the first black person that they had worked with. And they had all these perceptions and ideas of black people before they met me. Even now when I walk around like kind of I dress differently than other people. A lot of people are really obsessed with fashion, but I just don't care. So I will wear flip-flops with a pair of shorts with a long sleeve shirt like this in 40-degree weather. Like there's no problem with it. Because I grew up in the suburbs and
mm.
it's not as weird where I'm from. It's kind of weird to other people. I'm used to seeing kids walking to school with just a hoodie on with 5 feet of snow around them and they're just walking to school in shorts and a hoodie like it's nothing. I don't know. That's how I grew up.
But that's you're unique, So
Yeah, like definitely. But it also like I don't know. It's like you polarize yourself. I feel like you put yourself not you, but we as individuals, me specifically. I began to put myself in a box in which I never thought I would be successful at this, because the people that were immediately or physically around me didn't really identify, didn't really give me a chance. But when I felt that, that was the exact same time I became a bestseller for the very first time in my life. A number one. And it just, I'm like, I'm sitting here holding myself back. I'm sitting here telling myself that I'm shy. And that was the other thing is like, maybe you're not shy. Maybe I've just been stuck around assholes, you know? And that wasn't something that I was like willing to really free myself to think. Because before I was a people pleaser, I wanted everyone to like me. I wanted to be popular. And then I realized how unhealthy it was for me to have that kind of mentality. How unhealthy it was to keep trying to be someone that I wasn't. And I was never getting a chance to really discover who I was. And until I really tapped into that idea of, you know what, you're not black, you're a human being. You're not even really American. You're human. You're a global citizen. You're on the planet. There's a huge freaking planet. You can go anywhere that you want to, any day of the week that you want to.
mm.
That's what
Okay.
really set me free.
Dad, tell me name of your bestseller for audience.
I have a few. Okay. So my first bestseller ever was called Best Friends. That
Mhm.
is a romance novel. It's a collegiate romance novel trying to talk about hookup culture and a young man who is just tired of hooking up. He's tired of dating. He's tired of not having relationships that didn't end in marriage. Dating girls who did not want a future, that didn't want to commit. They wanted to have fun for the moment. but they were already planning to date somebody else or later down the road. Like women who knew that there was an expiration date on the relationship, but they never tell him that there's an expiration date on the relationship. We look at things today as if women are just being abused and mistreated, but it also speaks about just a masculine perception of love. And it came out in 2017 to no real reception. And then in 2019, when I started to take myself a little bit more seriously, it became a bestseller. Recently, For the Crown of Nadia is my number one bestseller. That was just a couple weeks ago. I have about 12 or so books that are published right now. So I'm not going
Wow.
to I've been very busy.
Wow.
And the past few months, I've been releasing a book every single. The whole process has been. I guess we're getting to like the creative process. That my creative process anyway is that I've been writing the full book, editing the full book, marketing the book, promoting the book every single month. So these are brand new books that I'm creating and writing that I'm editing myself, and that I have a few people in Nigeria that make my book covers for me because Americans want like $150 to $500 to make a book cover for you. And the other people are charging me like $17-35. So it was kind of hard not to go with $35 versus the $350. You know?
Oh, I agree. I agree. Especially when they know you are the bestseller. So.
Oh my God, yeah, like for me, it's like I know I'm like releasing books so often and so free. Like for the major thing for me was editing, and the difficulties with kind of editing is that when you pay someone to edit your book, if you're writing 50,000 to 150,000 words, that's going to cost you well over $1,000 to edit. So instead of doing that, I bought Grammarly, and I think that my biggest claim to fame that I'm really proud of is that I've done most of this aside from my book covers that I do now. Some of my book covers, I do make myself. A lot of my graphics come from images that I've had other people make. So that's a rather new addition, hiring other people out for that. But up until, again, 2020, I'd been doing everything independently. I'd been doing everything myself. This has been my lifestyle since I left college. And one of the major things, I saw a picture today that kind of like solidifies where I think a lot of people go wrong, if I'm allowed to change the subject real quick, is that one picture had a guy that had been reading like 3 books of Nietzsche or Nietzsche. It's Nietzsche, but depending on people want to like mess up his name, that's their decision. The other guy had been reading. What I found out was that I thought he'd been reading like books about self-publishing. It turned out to be Diary of a Wimpy Kid or whatever. But it's like that mindset of like some people come into this and they're like me. They have a bunch of knowledge and information about other things that are interesting and great. But if you don't have any real knowledge about marketing, you don't have any real knowledge about sales, you don't have any real knowledge about writing the market, about doing niche research, seeing the other competitors, doing SWOT. There's a lot of aspects of this that have nothing to do with writing. So a lot of people hold themselves back because of their personality, because of the book that they read. There's a lot of bad books that are bestsellers. There's a lot of bad books feeding people right now because they have the willingness to market, they have the budget to market, and they just have like the self-confidence and self-belief to push that self out. You can get a lot further in this industry with a background. There are people that are legit. They don't write their own books. They like, this is a problem or not a problem for some people. Some people won't care. I care. I'm concerned. Is that they hire someone from like India or someone from Indonesia to write the entire book for them. And this person makes all the money. They pay that one person like $7 an hour, and then they take all the profits and all the money and all their credit. They put their name on the book. And they're not actually writing anything. They just have a background in marketing. They just understand how to promote and push the book out there. So I feel like a lot of people come into this thinking that you have to be the greatest writer of all time. And then they don't really understand the promotional aspect of it. Multicultural culture, that's like a major thing, is that a lot of people don't understand advertising. They don't understand marketing. They don't understand promotions. They don't understand sales. They don't understand that advertising and marketing is a completely different branch than sales. It's like you really have to understand the business of books, or else you're just going to be writing for yourself. And I don't know. I went to a lot of different points in that. I apologize.
No, no. What you're describing is very important for all the new authors, and I think also I would add that there are a lot of people scammers out there too.
Yeah.
When people will take, like you're saying, $300-500 just to do the covers and even to write the book here.
For a pre-made cover.
Yeah.
For a pre-made cover, people charge like $150-200 for a pre-made cover. They don't even take the decency
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make you something unique for your book. They just have
And there are people, when I was trying to publish my book or write it, they will say ask 10 grand or so, and to just even do all that. And I did not pay. I said, no, I'll just write whatever, that's fine. So don't spend a lot of money. Pay attention to the content, pay attention to your message. Don't worry about if you become bestseller, great. If you don't worry, that doesn't matter. If you'll still be able to sell a lot. I mean, I sold 5,000 copies when I was a bestseller, but that's fine, doesn't matter. So that's that's it. You'll so ultimately, I think your satisfaction and is important. So if you're satisfied with your work, and if you're not, that's also fine. Then do another one. Do another one. Okay.
That's it. That's the major key, is that you just write another book. If you're not happy, if you're not satisfied, if
Yeah.
you got a bad review, just write another book. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, nobody can. So I said, well, the only advantage I had is with Amazon. I think I had on Amazon, I could revise it. I
Yeah.
have done 4 revisions since it was published. So I have revised 4 times, because this was more of, it's not a novel. So it is, kind of educational book. So, and then there was some feedback that if you can put this, and I also looked at it, not feedback, but I looked at it and I said, oh, I missed that detail, let me add that.
Yeah, that's
So I
okay.
was able to add, because it's educational, it's not a novel. So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, a novel is a separate story, or other
It's
books
very
are.
different. It's a very different project, writing
Oh, yeah.
fiction versus writing nonfiction.
So that was different, but it was such a pleasure knowing you. I wish you write someday a script for me for our movies and plays, and I'd love to work with you on that.
I would love to do it too.
That would be great. See, so okay, so I think any final thoughts or message you have for?
I wanted to respond to one because I really want to leave people with something that they can utilize. You mentioned Amazon, and I guess hopefully this doesn't take me too long because it's just been something I've been thinking about all week long. I look at the KDP Select Fund. Last month, the KDP Select Fund was about $49 million. This month, the KDP Select Fund is only $39 million. So that's like a $10 million drop. A lot of people are utilizing Amazon the wrong way, and you can sell a lot of. There are people that definitely make a lot of money off of Amazon. Most of those people that make that type of money, from having spoken to them, having taken the courses, they're spending a great deal on ad spend. So the money that they get back, you have to subtract how much they spend on ad spend to get to that point. I just want to tell people the way that you actually make money doing this, because this isn't something that I knew. You're not going to make a lot of money off of Amazon. If you sell hardcover paperback copies, then yeah, you're going to get a bigger margin of your own money. Owning your own book, owning your own IBSN, owning your own copywriting, taking care of that, because you're not utilizing Amazon for that, that's going to double your money first and foremost that you do get back from Amazon. But the major key that you want, sell your own books. Be your own distributor. You're not going to be your own manufacturer. You can't do your own production. You don't have the access to make your own books. Utilize Amazon as a platform to host your books, to retail your books, great, but to use KDP or print on demand rather, so that you can buy your books and then sell them at full retail value for yourself. I was making I got to the point with Amazon that I should have been making about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. I hadn't really done the math before because I hadn't sold my own books before. I had been relying upon Amazon for years. This year, I started doing book events. I started buying my own books and sell. I started taking my dad's advice more so. And then taking his advice, I made more money selling less books. I made more money meeting new people. Family members were able to support me because there's a lot of people that won't support you simply because you're using Amazon. They don't like the service or they don't utilize Kindle. So if I can just tell people anything, save up some money for about a business quarter or two. That's about 3 months to 6 months. Save up a little bit of money. Don't spend it on advertisements. Don't spend it on Facebook ads. Don't spend it on Amazon ads because you really don't have to. Buy your own books. Focus on selling your own books. You can start an email list, start a contact list at least so you know and can identify the people buying your books. But if you buy your own books, you go from making 35% to 70% to making 100 to 150%. You might spend $5 per copy of a book. You're going to make about $20 back, $15 back. You can make a lot of money doing this, but the money is not going to come from Ingram Spark. It's not going to come from KDP. It's not going to come from Lulu. It's going to come from you becoming your own distributor. And then you can make all your money back. That's the last thought I had because that was the biggest game changer for me personally. Because before I spent so much money in advertising for exposure that I'm just like the amount of money that I'm spending on ads, I'm not really seeing what I want to see from the money that I'm spending. When I instead started spending that money to buy cases of books, that's when I kind of got what I wanted. So that's my full thought on that.
Oh
But
no, no, I love it, and I would also connect with you after the show to ask you specifically how you did. Okay, okay. So thank you for coming to our show, and it was wonderful knowing you. And come back again and give us an update on your future projects.
whenever I'm allowed to come back, I'll be back. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank
Thank
you, sir. Take care. Take
you.
care.
You too. Bye.